It's 9:30. I'll call the meeting to order, and the first item of business is adoption of the agenda. Moved by Greg, seconded by Stewart, that the agenda be adopted as printed and circulated. Are there any issues with the agenda? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Having adopted the agenda, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Not seeing any. Minutes. Moved by Stewart, seconded by Grigg, that the minutes from the June 19th, 2024 council meeting be adopted as printed and circulated. Are there any issues with those minutes? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Nobody submitted for a public comment period. We have no public meetings and drainage meetings, and we have no delegation, so we will straight down to reports from staff, and we'll start with the Public Services Department. 8.1 Roads Division A, Report 2024-079 from the Director of Public Services. Steve, is there anything you want to highlight for council before I ask them for questions?
No, nothing to highlight at this time.
Questions from council on the report? Moved by Grigg, seconded by Stewart, that report 2024-079 from the Director of Public Services be received and filed for information purposes only. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And 8.1B, report 2024-081 from the Director of Public Services regarding the 2025 to 2027 dust suppressant tender results and recommendation. Steve, is there anything you want to highlight for council before I ask them for questions?
No, nothing to highlight.
Questions from council? Councillor Mitchell.
I had to look around to see where Steve was. Two applications of the dust suppressant. How much time elapses between the two applications?
They're put on simultaneously, back to back. So immediately one load, then the second load is following it right behind it. This allows to get enough on to do what it needs to do to combine all the fines in the gravel to pack it down and stop the dust.
So the second one goes on before it's regraded or anything? It's just,
Yep. It's okay. Right after one right after the other one.
Okay.
Any other questions on the report? Moved by Stewart, seconded by Grigg, that council award, award the 2024 dust suppressant tender to Pollard Highway Products for the tendered price of $446,400 in 2025, $457,200 in 2026, and $468,000 in 2027, applied to roads based on an average of 3,600,000 liters per year. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And 8.2 Recreation and Facilities Division Report 2024-054 from the Manager of Recreation and Facilities regarding monthly departmental activities. And Ali, is there anything you would like to highlight for council before I ask them for questions?
Not at this time.
Questions from council on the report? Councillor Mitchell.
Yes, Ali, a couple of questions. One is about, you mentioned the number of spots that have been filled for both the swimming and the camp. What constitutes a spot?
So one spot is equal to an 8 or 10 week session. So they would register for an 8 or 10 week session would be one spot, or for one private lesson would be one spot.
Okay, so if somebody signs up for 8 or 10 weeks, that's okay.
Correct.
Okay, so potentially, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, that 500, the number of spots is the number of participants?
Yes.
Okay. And my other question is about the energy reports. Are those public documents that could be put on an agenda? I know we've spent a lot of money on reducing our energy requirements, so personally would be interested to see that information.
I can respond to that one, Councillor Mitchell. Yes, it is. It's available to public on our website. There's a link to it. But if council wishes, we could bring a report to council with that on it as well, if requested. But it is available on our township website.
I don't know about the rest of council, but I think that would be. How long a report is it? Is it hundreds of pages?
It's not hundreds. No. It's lengthy, but it's yeah.
personally, I think it would be of interest to myself and probably to members of the public
Absolutely.
to live and consider, as I say, considering the amount of money we have spent on energy projects, that kind of information would be of interest.
No, that's not a problem at all.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a follow-up to that, is it okay with direction to staff to come up with some kind of report? I don't know that we necessarily, it could be a link to this, but maybe a summary report or something, or are staff comfortable with that? And I guess, question for Councillor Mitchell, are you comfortable that we'll get some kind of advice from staff?
Yeah, just something that makes it more accessible than that it's hidden somewhere on our website. I wasn't aware that it was on the website, so.
Deputy Mayor Grigg.
Just a question, a clarification, sorry, with the energy reporting. Is that just in relation to our usage or also our generation? Because we do have solar component at TDRC.
Right now, it's more usage and more of what we've purchased, such as electric Lambonis and things like that, to help our energy uses. Not so much into the generation of it yet. I can see in the future that's going to be built into it. Either it's going to be here the energy report or a separate report.
Any other questions on the report? Moved by Grigg, seconded by Stewart, that report 2024-054 from the Manager of Recreation and Facilities be received and filed for information purposes only. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And report 2024-061 from the Manager of Recreation and Facilities regarding recreation fees bylaw amendment. Ali, is there anything you want to highlight for council in that one?
Not at this time.
Questions from council on the report? Councillor Mitchell.
Two questions. First of all, the 4 project partners, are they slated to get unlimited usage of this pavilion? And I presume that would be unlimited free access to the pavilion. Where are we at on that?
Yes, so we are still in the process of determining the amount of usage that the partners would receive, and if it would be fully free, and how many times. So those are still in the works, and will be updated soon.
Okay. And second question on that is, it's a $75 per day rental. What constitutes the day?
8 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Stewart.
Just a clarification on timing as it relates not specifically to the pavilion, but we talk about in this report, I believe, that we're going to see updated fees in August for other services, I imagine. But there's also a note in the previous report talking about receiving the consultant's report on fees and charges review in September. So I just wanted to see, are we going to see them both in August or both in September? But we should see the report from the consultants at the same time as the proposed fees. Just a note that I saw between the two reports.
I'll have to check with Sophia on the timing of when those come in, but definitely get back to you on that one. Okay.
Any other questions? Deputy Mayor.
I know when we had the pavilion join our parks structure network in Zorra Township a couple years ago, in South Lions Park here, there was some questions and feedback around a rental fee and use of a public asset. So I just have a couple questions to sort of clarify some of that as we're looking at a new amenity here. So the $75 that is being proposed for rental, are you allowed to use the pavilion without renting it if it's not being already booked by someone else?
Yes, I think the intent is it to be also a public space as well.
And so if you are renting it, what is it that you are receiving? Sorry, a follow-up. If you are renting it, what is it that you are receiving for your rental?
Absolutely. So we would have signage that would dictate who's renting it at what time on what date, so that others are aware that it has been rented out. We would also put this on the website for rental availability, so people online would be able to see if it was rented or free to use. We would also ensure that the space is cleaned, garbage cans are accessible, washrooms are unlocked at the time of that rental.
Thank you.
So the question for me, the signage would be at the pavilion. So if somebody who hadn't booked it walked up, they would see that signage saying, "Oh, it's booked now."
Correct.
And would there be like some, a QR code or link to the information you said would be on the website? Something.
Yeah, that would be a great idea to add a QR code, but yeah, absolutely. You can check availability online, but it'd be something great to add.
Anyone else? Moved by Stewart, seconded by Grigg, that council approve the proposed amendment to fees bylaw 11-09 as amended, as indicated in report 2024-061. Any discussion? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I think this is a great recommendation. We already have a rental fee structure for every other amenity that the public can use, so I appreciate staff bringing this forward at this time. It seems a little silly because we're so close to a formal review where we're going to get these recommendations, but for this number to be derived from those same sources, I think gives us a good benchmark of this is probably going to be close to where we land. And it allows for the public to access that service at this pavilion now and not to have to wait until a later time. It's also great to see, as we're undertaking some new builds and having new amenities added, that staff are looking at how to better improve the customer experience of renting these. So lots of great ideas and plans coming forward, and I think this is a great thing for residents.
Anyone else? Councillor Finch.
I think the $75 is reasonable for comparing with other municipalities. And can I just add, thank you to all the donors, contractors, and everybody for getting this pavilion ready for the July 1st games. It looks fantastic.
Anyone else? Yeah, I spent hours at the Highland Games on Monday. It was certainly, this is not an evidence-based observation, but it was the largest crowd I can ever remember being at the Highland Games, sort of in the last 20-something years. And not only could you not sit under that pavilion, you could barely get standing room underneath it. And many people came up to me to just say, "This is amazing. This is amazing. This is so great that we did this." And as Councillor Finch said, I said, well, the township did it, but also community partners did it. They were the ones who had the idea and advocated for it. But I think this fee idea, I talked to several residents about it at the time, and everyone that I talked to about it said that it was a good idea, because people on the day were immediately saying this would be great to have a family function or whatever. And I said, you can book it. And they said, well, why can't we just use it? And I said, you can, but there might be somebody else there. And if you show up with 100 people for your family reunion, now maybe everybody isn't there. And they're like, oh, that's good. And everybody liked this idea. So I think the idea that, you can book it, you can have certainty to use it, the washrooms will be opened for you when you want to use it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think this is absolutely, excellent additional recreation service that we're offering, and we're doing it in the right way. And it was extremely well received on the Monday. So this is excellent. Could not be in more support of this initiative and how it was delivered. Anyone else before I call the vote? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And 9, reports from Corporate and Protective Services Department. 9.1, Emergency Services, Report 2024-080 from the Fire Chief regarding monthly services. Josh, is there anything you want to highlight for Council?
Not at this time.
Questions from Council on the report? Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, Chief, I'm just wondering if you could maybe speak a little bit to the peer support program that's mentioned in here, just to sort of outline the intention of it and who our partners are in it.
Absolutely. We have gotten the support of Blandford Blenheim, East Zorra Tavistock, Southwest Oxford, Norwich, Tillsonburg, Woodstock, and we're on board as a department. The work that the fire service does is traumatic in nature, and it is difficult to quantify that to people who haven't seen really what people should never have to see. So this is just a step forward in making sure that we have immediate access to first aid, mental health services for those people. The system that we're looking at is a train the trainer system, and it teaches firefighters how to support other firefighters. The package also, as proposed, includes an application that would monitor and take statistics so that the usage of this system could remain as hands-off as possible, so people keep their privacy, but we still get that information from it. So I believe that this is a very good way for us to support our membership without forcing. But another really wonderful thing that this does is it allows us to see the need in one another and request access on their behalf, which is something that a lot of systems do not promote. Most systems require that the person who is suffering be the person who come forward. So I really think that that's a good addition to the system.
Any other questions on the report? Moved by Grigg, seconded by, Deputy Mayor.
Everything in here sounds incredible. The only question I have, there's a piece in the report around the funding, and that the funding for this would come from the existing training budget. So my only question is, does that then put pressures or reduce access to other training opportunities for firefighters in order to get this program funded?
Absolutely it would, which is why one of the recommendations that's created is that the council support a transfer of funds from our reserve, which is from fire marquee funding, which is allocated for things like public education and training.
So follow up from me then. So is that a sustainable source of funding for this training ongoing, or would that be like a budgetary increase in 2025 in order to keep this going? I don't know who wants to.
I am absolutely going to request a budgetary increase in 2025 for this.
Good. Anyone else? Moved by Grigg, seconded by Stewart, that council approves Zorra Fire and Emergency Services to develop a trained peer support team with Blandford Blenheim, East Zorra Tavistock, Southwest Oxford, Norwich, Tillsonburg, Woodstock, and Zorra, and that council approve Fire and Emergency Services to join the Peer Connect app for 2024, and that council approve the transfer of funds from the Fire Training Reserve to fund the peer support program. Is there any discussion? Councillor Mitchell.
I fully support this initiative. When it comes to PTSD, I can say been there, done that. PTSD is a lot like concussions. You notice the big ones because the symptoms are pretty obvious to anybody who knows what to look for. But there's also the little ones that are cumulative that you don't really notice, that build up over the years and until something happens to trip a full response. And our part-time local firefighters, I believe, are a much higher risk than a full-time firefighter for three main reasons. First of all, we're on 24/7 call, so rather than full-time firefighter who's on shift and who's geared up to know what he's going to face in the next 24 hours, our local firefighters could be waking up in the middle of the night or doing just about any type of activity, and within minutes they're seeing things, as the chief said, that you should not see. Second reason is it's a good chance that because we serve locally, the people in crisis are your friends, neighbors, or family, or all three. And the third one is that because the calls you answer are in your community, you're always reminded of what happened at that scene. And there are many locations in Zorra Township that I drive by, and I can remember something that happened there. So the financial cost is minimal at less than $7,000 a year. When you consider the support and treatment compared to what it costs to replace a firefighter who retires because of PTSD, when you look at recruiting, training, and also the loss of experience of an experienced firefighter. But the human cost of not providing this is much greater than any dollar figure. So my compliments to the chief and the other chiefs in the township for going forward with this. And you may notice that I kept saying we.
Anyone else? Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, just another example of obviously when we have many examples of this where we share the services of a program with, or a staff member with multiple municipalities from a cost savings perspective. It just makes sense from an efficiency standpoint. But what sticks out to me is that there's an anonymous portion of this, but there's an ability to reach out as well to people that are not necessarily the people you see every day in your own department locally, but that you come across. And we have RIFSOC training, which is the 5 rurals that come together. You make connections with those people, and they're people that you can probably reach out to that you don't feel as connected to, though. And you know, I think this is a great way, combining all of the rurals together, along with the other 2 towns that are involved in connecting people in that way. And even though I think the culture does exist within Zorra Fire, I think it's a great way to promote it.
Anyone else? I wouldn't want to attempt to add anything to what Councillor Mitchell said. I think that was all the key points. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And 9.2, Building Drainage and Bylaw Services, Report 2024-076 from the Chief Building Official Drainage Superintendent. Mike, is there anything you want to highlight for Council?
No.
Questions from Council on the report? Moved by Stewart, seconded by Grigg, that Report 2024-076 from the Chief Building Official Drainage Superintendent be received and filed for information purposes only. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. (9.2) Report 2024-075 from the Chief Building Official Drainage Superintendent regarding the J.B. Murray Drain 2023 Tender Award. Mike, is there anything you want to highlight for Council there?
Nothing.
Questions from Council on the report? Moved by Mitchell, seconded by Finch, that the J.B. Murray Drain 2023 tender be awarded to Van Bree Drainage and Bulldozing Limited for their tendered price of $471,758, excluding HST. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. (9.3) Financial Services. Report 2024-077 from the Director of Finance regarding the tile loan application submitted by Cathie Szmon for Part Lot 32, Concession 9. Diane, is there anything you want to highlight for Council before I ask them for questions?
No, nothing else.
Questions from Council on the report? So I just want to clarify, and I think I understand this. I want to make sure for anybody watching this, because there's a chunk of money and a loan here, but essentially the municipality's role here is processing of this and inspection to ensure the work is done, as opposed to we're not actually taxing anybody and loaning the money. We're facilitating the loan by processing it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Any other questions on the report? Moved by Mitchell, seconded by Finch, that Council approve the application for the tile drain loan of Cathie Szmon for a tile drain loan on Part Lot 32, Concession 9 in the Township of Zorra, pending funding from the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. No items from Legislative Services. 10, correspondence requiring direction. Correspondence from some guy, member of top aggregate producing municipalities of Ontario regarding resignation from TAPMO executive. There is a motion here, but before I read it, is there any questions on this? I mean, there can be questions after I put the motion on the floor. I just want to ask if there's any questions or clarification or anything before I read the motion. Moved by Finch, seconded by Mitchell, that council extend their appreciation to Mayor Ryan for his time and efforts on TAPMO, and that council supports Deputy Mayor Grigg on her application to join the executive board, and this resolution be sent to TAPMO. Councillor Finch, as the mover, do you wish to speak to that?
I think we all just want to thank you, Marcus, for your time on this board, your passion, dedication, and leadership. And Cathie, I think you have many of those same qualities, and I think you're going to be an asset to this board.
Anyone else?
I can't add anything to what Crystal just said. I wholly agree.
Sorry about that, Paul, I didn't. I would just say a brief version of what I said at the TAPMO meeting. I'm resigning from the executive, not because I don't think TAPMO is worthwhile and is not being effective, but because I was missing meetings. And I just felt that as a member of the executive, it was not okay for me to miss meetings. Deputy Mayor Griggs expressed many times interest in the work that TAPMO does and advancing it, and I thought, well, if she's willing and able to attend those meetings and I'm not, then that should happen. I talked with Chair Seeley, Mayor of Puslinch and Wellington County Councillor about it, and he was supportive of the idea. So we went through and made sure that in the context of the terms of reference that all the appropriate I's were dotted and T's were crossed so that it was procedurally right. And I'm highly confident that the Deputy Mayor will represent Zorra well on the TAPMO executive. There's still a lot of work to be done there, and I think they have the absolute ability. They've made some other changes recently, which maybe we can talk about later, that will enable TAPMO to be even more effective going forward. So I'm very supportive of this change. Deputy Mayor Grigg.
Can I have a couple minutes? Get that ready. So, oh, okay. When I first considered running for council, and people were encouraging me to run, the two things that I always said was, I know nothing about Aggregate, and I know nothing about the Drainage Act. And those were the reasons that I thought sitting in this seat was not for me, because I didn't have all the knowledge. As I got into this, I realized there was a lot more that I didn't know than just aggregate and drainage. But the not knowing is often an asset in being able to be effective in this role. That when you don't know, then you're driven to learn and see things full picture, long-term implications, and try to identify areas that could use some change. When it comes to TAPMO, we have directly experienced the benefit of close observation, advocacy, measurement, and now we're having added funding coming through the tax class change for aggregate pits. So early in my last term of council, my first term of council, I remember Mayor Ryan asking Director of Public Works for, could we get some numbers that would capture the amount of financial implication for the damage that's happening to our roads as a direct impact of the aggregate pits. And that seeking out of the data to really form the structure of who's paying for what, and make it really clear that the aggregate pits were not paying for that road work that was on the backs of residents. Fast forward 5 years, in the advocacy work of TAPMO, we've now seen a tax class reassessment that is providing a property tax bill for aggregate pits that reflects the actual damage that's happening to those roads. And this council got to take part in a really great conversation around what to do with those funds. I'm really happy that this council endorsed moving forward with allocating those funds back into improving our roads network. That was the intention of that work that I watched happen over those 5 years. I am very protective of my time, and I don't like to spend time doing things that won't go anywhere. What I have witnessed of TAPMO is it's absolutely structured to get big things done. And when we had the discussion around whether or not we wanted to be part funder for formation of an executive director position for TAPMO. That question had me digging into what is the value of TAPMO and what work still is to come. And in consideration of that, I had some conversations with some members of TAPMO to really gain a better understanding and also see sort of what that organization works like. I hear a lot about cracked windshields, non-compliance. We have the Auditor General's report that indicates that was on our agenda, I can't remember how long ago, that demonstrates that compliance is not being met. There's environmental concerns that we've heard over time, and we are a municipality that is absolutely surrounded by both active pits and pits that are being rehabilitated. So while we probably won't see the same significant financial payout that we saw in the tax class reassessment through the work of TAPMO, there's significant benefit in environmental and reduction of resident nuisance complaints from our pits. I think we have a lot of potential to have positive working relationships with our pits, and I think having an active pit ourselves is a great starting point because we have some understanding from that side as well. So back to my point about being really protective of my time, I'm excited to be able to prioritize this in my time for the benefit of Zorra. Being a member of TAPMO, we benefit regardless, but having direct membership active on TAPMO board I think is critical for us in ensuring that our investment is well worthwhile. And yeah, I think that's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? I'll read it again and call the question. Moved by Finch, seconded by Mitchell, that council extend their appreciation to Mayor Ryan for his time and efforts on TAPMO, and that council supports Deputy Mayor Grigg on our application to join the executive board, and that this resolution be sent to TAPMO. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And 11, boards and committees. Upper Thames River Conservation Authority board update from board member Mitchell.
I'll try not to get as emotional as I was a few minutes ago on this report, but the latest meeting of the board of the Upper Thames was on June 25th. I'm sure Diane will agree that budgeting is now a 12-month of the year process, so our first report was on the 2025 budget concepts. No big numbers, but some underlying numbers that Upper Thames staff are using to prepare the next budget. They're looking at a 3% increase in wages and benefits next year, which is slightly above the CPI increase, but Upper Thames has had a huge turnover in staffing in the last 5 years, so a large number of their staff are moving up in the salary grade, which is causing a little bit more increase in total cost than just the inflationary cost. We're also seeing significant construction cost increases on all the projects, especially the WECI projects, the flood control structures. Those are going up significantly. They're also looking at on an average 7% increase in property taxes, and the Upper Thames owns 14,000 acres. So they pay a lot of property taxes to the municipalities. And they're also projecting a 9% insurance premium increase. The good news is that Upper Thames has applied to a federal grant through Environment Canada, and they are, what they said was 95% confident that they would receive the money, which could be up to $2.5 million for 2024, and somewhere up to $5 million for each of the next 4 years. So that can have a huge impact on our overall budget, which is generally around the $20 million range. The money will be targeted to Category 3 programs, which is includes the voluntary programs, but also the recreational and the conservation areas. But that by getting, if we get that grant, that will free up some funds that we had, would otherwise be spending to upgrade electrical and that sort of thing in the conservation areas. We can shift that to the Category 1 programs, which are the mandatory ones, which are funded by municipal levy. So as usual, the federal government is delaying and delaying announcing. Staff hope that early July they would find out whether we get that money or not. Another impact on what's going to happen as far as the levy next budget is the fact that there has been no updated impact evaluations. So we're still going on the 2012 to 2016 period, in which farmland escalated higher than urban land, which means that the smaller municipalities will see a higher increase in levies than London, Ingersoll, Woodstock, Stratford. Nothing we can do about that. Staff are preparing a budget communication package, which will come to the board at our next meeting in August. And that's the purpose of that is to go out to our municipalities to explain the budget in more detail as it's developed. We had an update on the WECI projects, the grant applications, and just a reminder that is the provincial program, which provides 50% of the funding for maintenance, repairs, and other projects to do with flood control. The impact on Zorra Township is that the money that was put in there for decommissioning the Ambro Dam is still in. The money that was going to be applied for this dam safety review in Harrington has been taken out. So that safety review has been delayed indefinitely until there's money there for it. So that's the latest on that. We did have a update on the watershed strategy and strategic plan. The Upper Thames is going to be hiring an outside consultant to update the strategic plan. They have not issued the RFP for that yet, but staff has done significant work on the watershed strategy, and we were given the first draft of that, which lays out very clearly the objectives of various program areas, how that's divided up into the various categories, and gives a good explanation of the various strategies. And then we had a presentation about the Green Leadership Summit, and that is a program, I think, primarily in London, where there are 400 plus grades 7 and 8 students who are in a year-long program where they do various projects in the community, and in June they all get together for a one-day summit at University of Western Ontario, and it was a combination of a program. The applications to get involved in this, I think they said there was been over 100 applications for next year, and there's actually only 16 places that they can handle with the resources that they have. And it is sponsored by the Thames Valley District School Board, the London Catholic School Board, the Upper Thames, and General Motors. And that was our meeting.
Any questions from council? Moved by Finch, seconded by Mitchell, that item 11A be received and filed for information purposes only. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Item 12, correspondence from Jennifer Keys, Director of Development and Hazard Policy Branch, Ministry of Natural Resources. Moved by Mitchell, seconded by Finch, that item 12A be received and filed for information purposes only. Is there any discussion? Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, kind of what I got from the letter was that they're loosening up some of the regulations. Is that a fair representation of what's happening here?
I would say in my previous role on TAPMO executive, I would characterize it that way, yes. That the current provincial government has prioritized getting aggregate sandstone and gravel out of pits as quickly and easily as possible over regulation and, you know, cumulative impact on communities. I think that's a fair assessment, yes. Yeah. Anyone else? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And bylaws. Wow. Moved by Finch, seconded by Mitchell, that bylaws 36-24 and 37-24 be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, and further that the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized to sign the same and affix the corporate seal thereto. Is there any discussion? Councillor Mitchell.
I have a question for staff about the second bylaw, the municipal funding agreement. And it's, what is that about? How much money are we getting and what are we using it for?
I can speak to that. That was considered our federal gas tax in the past. Now it's called the Canada Community Building Fund. And this is just a continuation of that contract that we had, and it is adding on additional years. So 2024, we're expected to have expected of $271,265. 2025 is looking at $282,568. 2026 is the same. 2027 will go up to $293,870, and 2028 will also be the same as 2027. And the funds from this all go toward our building projects, our bridge projects, sorry.
So it's something that we've done all along. It's just some more loops to jump through to get it done.
It's a continuation, and it's staff in the background do all the reporting to the federal government based on all the projects, and then they make the announcements, and you'll see that Public Works puts up a sign on each of our projects. We do communication based on the requirements through the federal government.
Yeah, I noticed that there was pages and pages of making sure that the federal government got their credit for all this. Every sign had to have it on there.
Any other discussion? I can't remember if I read this already, so I'm going to read it again. Moved by Finch, seconded by Mitchell, that bylaws 36-24 and 37-24 be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, and further that the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized to sign the same and affix the corporate seal thereto. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Items of community interest and the calendar. Councillor Finch.
The Embro Family Pharmacy is having an open house barbecue on July 6th, 11 to 2. July 7th, Gulspie Dairy is celebrating their 150th years of dairy farming at the Glen Athlone Farms, 1 to 4 p.m. Rural Oxford Entrepreneur Evening at the Deep Purple Lavender Farm on July 10th, 6 to 8. The Pride of the Birches Band from Northern Ireland is having a free outdoor event at the Knox United Church on July 16th, starting at 7 p.m. OFA is hosting a Making Wellness Matter at the Deep Purple Lavender Farm on July 18th, 6 to 9 p.m. with live music, yoga demonstrations, vendors, and inspiring speakers. July 20th is Garage Fest 15 from 2 to 10 p.m. at Cooksville Tire in Embro. August 2nd and 3rd is the Embro Tractor Pulls, gates open Friday at 4 p.m. And the Embro Community VBS is having their week-long Vacation Bible School on August 12th to 16th.
Anyone else? Councillor Mitchell.
Tomorrow is the annual Browns barbecue, but ticket sales were cut off on the weekend, so if you don't have a ticket, you're going to miss out.
It's a good thing you said that, because I got my tickets and I completely forgot that it was tomorrow. I was going to go ahead and make dinner plans and everything, so now I don't have to. Anyone else? Any other events? All right. Moved by Finch, seconded by Mitchell, that council move into closed meeting session at 10:14 a.m. pursuant to section 239.2B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, regarding the medical center. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will be going into the Margaret Lupton boardroom for closed. We are back from closed, 11:09, and the only two items we have left are confirmatory and adjournment. So moved by Finch, seconded by Mitchell, that bylaw 38-24, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council held July 3rd, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time this July 3rd, 2024, and further that the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized to sign the same and affix the corporate seal thereto. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And moved by Mitchell, seconded by Finch, that this session of council be now adjourned and herewith closed at 11:10 a.m. And the next meeting of council be called for August 7th, 2024 at 9:30 a.m. in the council chambers of the township at the Zorra Municipal Center. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried, and we are adjourned.